All right, let's move along and get to our big segment today. It's the All 32 with Lance Lysowski. Always a pleasure to be joined on the show by Lance Lysowski of the Buffalo News, and I will fight the urge to make this about myself and start with the Amari Cooper question, which I was dying to ask. But let's talk a little bit about expectations and this Sabres team, because, the fan base really seems to be living and dying on every win. We know the pressure that they're feeling on their team to get back into the playoffs and finally end that drought. I guess that in a long way, it's me asking vibe check in the room. Are the players feeling that pressure from the fan base?
They're not. And last year they were, and that was one of the problems. They got off to a slow start, and toward the end of October, it's like half the room thought that, well, that's it. Because the previous year they missed the playoffs by a point. So every game mattered so much. They're doing a much better job, at least from my perspective, of handling the ups and downs, right? They go 0-2 on the trip in Prague, and there was really no panic in the room. They had that terrible, really terrible loss to the Kings where they dominate 2 periods and they threw the game away in the third. And again, they hit the repeat button on how they played that night, and they ended up beating the Florida Panthers. Although shorthanded, it still went against the Panthers, right? They had to get that one out of the way, and they feel good about the way that they're playing with Lindy Ruff as their coach. They're playing better defensively, and now their power play just has to get going. They haven't scored a goal yet there.
Yeah, power play will be key, but just offense as a whole, they get that big game last time out and they put 5 past the goalie, and that probably was a huge boost of confidence. But when you look at where this offense is going to come from, Lance, it's been some of the usual suspects to start. Tuck has been really good. When you look at Tage Thompson, he's got 2 goals in 4 games. Greenway's been fine, but where's Jack Quinn? Where JJ Peterka is coming back from injury, but when you look at some of the other guys on this team that have more to give, is it Quinn? Is it Krebs? Is it who are you looking toward to get on the score sheet sooner rather than later?
They need Jack Quinn to produce. They need Dylan Cousins to produce, and they need Zach Benson to produce. They made a decision over the summer when they bought out Jeff Skinner. They're going to rely on their young players. They were going to bet on Jack Quinn to come back and produce after missing a lot of time last season. They were betting on Dylan Cousins to be that 30-goal guy again that he was 2 years ago, and meld that defensive, that responsible 2-way game with that offensive, dynamicism that he has. And it hasn't happened quite yet. The Cousins line with Quinn and Yuri Kulik had a good game against the Panthers, but they're not producing yet. Ryan McLeod hasn't done enough offensively yet, and he's had a lot of defensive assignments. I get it, but didn't score on a penalty shot. He's had his opportunities. He just hasn't finished.
I wanted to talk quickly about the blue line as well. Frank's been raving about it, and you look at it on paper, and it's got these flashy pieces. Obviously, there's Rasmus Dahlin and Owen Power and Bowen Byram. But what about Mattias Samuelsson, another guy coming off a significant injury? I know you wrote a piece about him the other day over at the Buffalo News. Is he maybe the forgotten key to this blue line in a way?
He is. They need Mattias Samuelsson to play the way that he did 2 seasons ago when he was coming off the big contract, and the team had really committed to him, but injuries sidetracked him again last season. He's missed a lot of time, and Lindy Ruff's putting him in a 3rd-pair role. He's not next to Dahlin anymore. He's playing less at even strength. They're trying to get more out of Mattias Samuelsson to have a play faster and really rely on him to be that big PK guy. He's leading them in shorthanded ice time. He's played pretty well in those situations, aside from his penalty late in the Kings game. And it's just the thing that he missed 8 months, and you could see when the season began, he's a player who had missed 8 months. He wasn't processing as quickly those first couple of games, but played really well against the Panthers. And Clifton's looked really good since the end of the first half of last season. He's been a nice little addition, really in an important role in that 3rd pair as well.
Lance, give us the download on the Sabres goalie situation. Both goalies have split the workload to this point. They've both given up the same number of goals, 5 against in 2 appearances. Save percentage, obviously a little bit skewed for UPL. He saw less shots. But when it comes to Devin Levi and what we've seen from him so far, how big of a step forward has it been?
Oh, it's significant. He played really well his last 3 starts late last season in Buffalo. He spent that time in Rochester. They called him up in late March, played really well, and he's translated it right into this season. Had a great camp, which really convinced them, well, we'll hide James Reimer. We'll try to sneak him on waivers. And if we lose them, we understand the risk. But Kevin Adams and their goalie coach, Mike Bales, they're betting on Devin Levi to work in this tandem. And it's going to be interesting now, Frank. They got a back-to-back the next 2 days. In Pittsburgh tonight, Columbus tomorrow. who plays after that, because Devin Levi's played extremely well. Luukkonen, it's the save percentage is the save percentage, right? He had some tough luck late in that game against the Kings, gives up a power play goal in the 5-on-3, and it looks worse than it probably should. But this is the thing. They don't want either goalie to go too long without playing. So in the schedule, we'll see what happens. You just know that the decisions that are going to be made by the general manager and the coach are going to be with winning in mind. And if it upsets the apple cart, or you just paid somebody, they're not going to care. They're going to play who they think gives them the best chance to win. And Devin Levi is making a really strong case right now to push Luukkonen for priority starts.
Frank, you want to get another one?
Yeah. Has there been a surprise so far for you in the early going? Like, is there one player that stood out either in a good or bad way to open the season?
Well, Rasmus Dahlin missed a lot of camp with an injury, so he's gotten off to a little slower start. He's finally starting to look like himself. That Florida game was a lot better. I think Owen Power's taken a big step, and you still need him to be a physical player. Like, he needs the physicality has to be a part of his game, and they need to instill that in him. But he's looked much better just defending gaps, killing plays, and I think it's gone really unnoticed, and it's been a big help for them at the start, because Dahlin hasn't been able to be that 26 to 27 a minute guy. They've needed to lean on Power and Bo Byram a bit more than maybe they probably would have at the start of camp.
Yeah, perfect segue to Bo Byram, because I was looking back on last year and thinking about how tough of a transition that might have been for him. Going from a team that has won a Stanley Cup and is in the mix to one that has a lot of work to do to even get in that conversation. But it seems like he's adjusted well, and I think part of it is he sees the opportunity, but part of it is he really seems like he wants to be there.
Yeah, no, he does. And Kevin Adams did his work before that trade to make sure that if this is something that happened, that Bo Byram would be happy about it. He knows a lot of guys on the team, fits the style of play. Coming in early March, they just lost their most consistent forward was Casey Middlestad. You take him out of the lineup, they were thin up front. It just wasn't a great situation for a new player to come in, different system. So it took, as soon as he had to start adjusting to the systems, he wasn't as effective. But Lindy Ruff, his D-zone system is exactly the same as Colorado's. So Bo Byram is back in an Avs mode when it comes to his D-zone game. He looks a lot more comfortable. And the fact that he's on the second power play unit, they need him to be a solution there. He's got his own power play now, and they're going to see how that works. He was sharing with Power before, 23 minutes a game. He's helping them play fast. Like that, this team played too slow last season. They had trouble getting out of their zone. That was a point of emphasis. And Bo Byram, despite, they got that two lefties on that pair, Byram and Power, they're both left-handed. That presents some challenges in the offensive zone, but they're making the most out of it. They played really well. So the transition, I think getting to start with this team in camp and having this style of play, the way Lindy Ruff wants his team to play, just fits so well with his game. It's made it work nicely for them.
Last one quickly. I know it's kind of a week old, but the Dahlin v. Krebs practice fight, is that firmly in the rearview mirror?
Well, I think it's fun. I thought it was really interesting, the reaction on social media, guys. And Frank, having covered a team, how many practices on the road nowadays with how many beat teams aren't covered go unwatched? Like, I'm just curious how many teammate skirmishes or dust ups do we see around the league every year?
A lot. And I would say
exactly
the other thing is most practices don't have a camera there. So the fact that you even had that to dissect, that wouldn't have happened 10 years ago, let alone longer than that. And these were kind of a routine thing.
Yeah, and these are two guys that are extremely competitive. And Krebs coming into this camp, trying to prove himself, he's been a really physical player. And when they're practicing the way that they are, fast-paced, physicality is integrated into the drills, you're going to have guys get upset from time to time. And Krebs hit, he got up high on Dahlin to play before, and you don't want Dahlin to go low with the hip check there. I'm sure that Kevin Adams and Lindy Ruff said, just don't do that part of it next time. But as a coach, how do you not like that? Two guys who are extremely competitive going at it, it happens.
Sabres going for win number 2 on the year tonight in Pittsburgh. Lance, always appreciate your insight, man. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me, guys. Take care. Talk soon.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.